this bigger project called Steve Lacy's Demo. From there, oh, thank you.
Can you be quiet? Whoa!
I got my hands on an iPhone.
Who is Steve Lacy, I hear you asking? Well, unless you've been living under a rock, don't have TikTok, or avoid listening to the radio, or all three, you have likely heard of him through the virality of his song, Bad Habit. For those of you on a time crunch, the answer to who is Steve Lacy is that he's Steve Lacy. But if you find some time, let me explain to you what I mean. Now I, as I presume many people before the release of Gemini Rights earlier this year, was not a Steve Lacy mega fan. I was familiar enough with some of his music, but not to a large extent. Therefore, after his sudden shift into the spotlight through his music and some controversy, I decided to go back through his discography to try and understand what has driven him to such meteoric success. I found myself really connected to how introspective and authentic Steve comes across in all of his music, which I believe to be the driving factor as to why he has achieved so much in a relatively short time. As a blanket statement, Steve Lacy's music is something I recommend you go back through and listen to. And in this video, I'm going to outline several reasons why you should do so. So let's talk about him. Now, going over the basics, Steve Lacy is a 24-year-old singer, songwriter, and professional phone destroyer. Besides the previously mentioned song, Bad Habit, Steve is also known for such songs as See You Girl, Some, and by far his most streamed song, Dark Red. He has also written and produced songs for all your favorite mainstream hip-hop artists like J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar, and Tyler, the Creator. Now, I always knew that Steve had been around the music industry for quite a while, working with the Odd Future splinter group, The Internet. It was still somewhat surprising to learn how young he actually is, considering that Dark Red came out well over 5 years ago when he would have been around 19 years old. Even to further that, See You Girl came out in 2015 when he presumably would have still been in high school. The fact that throughout his music he bends through so many different genres and styles is really impressive for someone who's so relatively fresh into their music career. His 2017 demo tape is a nice sampler project that helps you get a taste for Steve's musical ability, and when compared to his more recent work, it also helps to showcase his flexibility and evolution through his music. It's quite an iconic demo containing the previously mentioned Dark Red as well as Some. Now, I'm not usually a fan of popularized songs because they tend to be overplayed in the media and just within our daily lives. But with Dark Red, I can't help but feel enthralled by it.
There's something bad about to happen.
I'm a huge sucker for good instrumentation, and Steve's voice over the entire track is super silky. Moving a bit forward here, Lacy released the compilation Lo-Fi's in 2020. In Front of Me streamed particularly well off the compilation, but the song that interested me the most would be That's No Fun. On this song, Steve provides commentary in response to criticism associated with his evolution in musical style, from his original demo tape to his more recent projects and collaborations with the band The Internet. This song really put into perspective that Steve makes music for his own personal passion. He has his own vision and trajectory of where he wants to go and the sound he wants to produce. I think this characterization really helps in the understanding of his album, Apollo 21. I actually really loved this album. It feels like a very personal and introspective experience that is being transcribed to the listener. It isn't flawless by any means, but I think that's what makes me enjoy it more. Even if there are flaws, they almost feel intentional, which adds to the feeling of individualism. Art, from my own perspective in its purest form, is not about pleasing a target audience. It's about allowing the artist to express themselves in whatever way they enjoy. It feels like Steve created this album for himself, and as odd as that may sound, I think it is a really unique feeling and something that I've only found in very few artists. Is it easy to digest? Not necessarily, and I think that's why some of the reviews aren't super favorable. But as a fan of music, I like to be able to feel the passion being put into a project, flaws and all, and I think that's also why it was nominated for a Grammy when released. Alright, now that we got that out of the way and we're caught up to date, we have the release of Gemini Rights. This album, in comparison to Steve's other work, seems a lot more digestible, which definitely aided in its success. The album thematically is still very much revolving around Steve's experiences in love and in life, therefore maintaining the personal nature of his music. I enjoyed this album a lot, and by listening to it fully, I completely understand the popularity it has gotten thus far. However, the main thing I want to focus on is the controversy that has surrounded the release of this album, and the somewhat polarizing figure that Steve has become. A lot has been said, particularly on TikTok, about Steve's behavior while he has been on tour and during shows. There have been comments suggesting that his antics at shows come from an egotistical and arrogant place, and his reactions have been overly aggressive, unnecessary, and disrespectful. My own opinion is that I actually find his outbursts to be rather refreshing. As previously mentioned, a lot of Steve's music is actually quite personal to him. It has that feeling that it isn't made for other people's consumption, it's made so Steve can express himself. Therefore, when you have a bunch of TikTok fans that don't actually know your music, are shoving their phones in your face, and are shouting at you while you're performing, it comes across really disrespectful to the music that Steve dedicates himself to and cherishes so much. But Will, some of these people paid good money to go see these concerts. They clearly have respect and love for Steve and his music by paying this money, I hear some of you saying. If you have the opinion that because you pay for something, it automatically means you are showing respect for it, I hope you don't have young kids or like a cat or a dog or anything. Respect and love is displayed through action, not currency. Some artists are fine with people recording, shouting, and even throwing things at them while they're performing, but that doesn't make it automatically the norm of respect at a concert. If you're going to a Steve Lacy show without the understanding of who he is or understanding his music fully, that isn't his fault, that's your own fault. It would likely make you angry too if people were disrespecting work that you loved very dearly, yet they felt entitled to do so because they paid money. It's fair to say that he definitely overreacted somewhat, but that's just Steve Lacy, passionately authentic to himself, even to a fault. So to answer the question of who is Steve Lacy, like I said at the beginning, Steve Lacy is, well, Steve Lacy, whether you like it or not. And that type of artistic integrity is something that I feel has been lacking from the music industry for quite some time. The fact he is so young, with such a strong mindset for creating, mixed with his experience in working with different genres and sounds, makes me super excited to see what kind of art Steve produces next. I believe he has the potential to be a generational talent.